The imperial palace of Drakenthar gleamed under three suns, its obsidian spires reaching toward the crimson sky like claws grasping at eternity. Within its vast halls, Emperor Thoraxion the Eternal paced before his council of elder dragons, his scales rippling with barely contained fury. The subject of his rage sat silent in the corner. Prince Varian, his only heir, who at 7 cycles old had yet to produce even a spark. "Defective," the Emperor hissed, smoke curling from his nostrils. "The bloodline of fire-breathers stretching back 10,000 years, and my son cannot light a candle." The physicians had no answers. The priests offered only prayers. The combat masters declared the prince unteachable. Prince Varian remained motionless during these pronouncements, his golden eyes dim, his small wings folded tight against his body. He had stopped trying to breathe fire 3 months ago. He had stopped speaking 2 months ago. Last week he had stopped eating. The Emperor made his decree. If the prince cannot perform the rite of first flame by the next moon, he will be declared unfit. The throne will pass to my brother's line. It was a death sentence in all but name. Thomas Reed heard about the prince's condition while mopping the Hall of Echoes. He was human, one of perhaps 50 in the entire Drakenthar Empire, brought from Earth as part of a cultural exchange program that neither species particularly wanted. Thomas had ended up as a janitor in the Imperial Palace, which suited him fine. He liked the quiet work, the rhythm of cleaning, and the fact that most dragons barely noticed him. But he noticed things. He noticed that the prince's chamber, which he cleaned every morning, showed no signs of life. No scattered toys, no disturbed bedding, no half-eaten meals, just a small dragon curled in the exact same spot each day, staring at nothing. On the morning after the Emperor's decree, Thomas entered the prince's chamber with his cleaning supplies and found Prince Varian in his usual corner. The young dragon's ribs showed through his scales. "Hey there, Your Highness," Thomas said softly, setting down his bucket. He didn't expect a response and didn't get one. He began to clean, humming an old earth song his grandmother used to sing. Halfway through mopping, Thomas's boot caught on the edge of his bucket. He windmilled his arms, performed an inadvertent pirouette, and landed directly on his backside in the soapy water. The bucket tipped over, sending suds cascading across the polished floor. "Well, that's just perfect," Thomas muttered, sitting in the puddle. "Grace of a drunk elephant, that's me." He heard it then, the smallest sound. A tiny exhale that might have been the beginning of a laugh, cut short as if the prince had forgotten how. Thomas looked up. Prince Varian's eyes were focused on him for the first time in weeks. "Oh, you think that's funny?" Thomas said, keeping his tone light. He stood up, his pants dripping. "Watch this." He proceeded to slip again, this time deliberately catching himself on a windowsill in an exaggerated pose. Another small sound from the prince. Thomas continued his routine, slipping, sliding, and narrating his misadventures with dramatic flair. He balanced the mop on his nose. He juggled cleaning rags. He did a terrible dragon impression that involved puffing out his cheeks and making ridiculous growling sounds. And then it happened. Prince Varian laughed. A real, genuine laugh that seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised Thomas. The instant the laugh left his throat, fire followed. A brilliant stream of golden flame shot across the room, igniting a decorative tapestry. Thomas yelped and grabbed his bucket of water, dousing the flames before the palace guards arrived. Prince Varian stared at his own mouth in shock. Then he looked at Thomas, and for the first time in months he spoke. I did it." "You sure did, kid," Thomas said, grinning despite his singed eyebrows. "Though maybe we should practice aiming before we tell anyone." Over the next weeks, Thomas visited the prince every day. He told jokes, made funny faces, and shared stories about Earth that seemed impossibly strange to the young dragon. They discovered that Varian could only breathe fire when he felt genuine joy, something the rigid protocols of imperial training had systematically crushed out of him. Thomas didn't teach the prince to be a weapon. He taught him to be a child. They played games with cleaning supplies. They drew pictures in soap suds on the floor. They invented elaborate stories about the people in the palace portraits. And with each laugh, with each moment of unguarded happiness, Prince Varian's flames grew stronger and brighter. The day of the rite of first flame arrived. The entire court assembled in the grand arena to witness the prince's trial. Emperor Thoraxion sat upon his throne of volcanic glass, his expression carved from stone. Prince Varian stood in the center of the arena, small and alone. The high priest intoned the ancient words and called upon the prince to demonstrate his fire. The crowd waited in skeptical silence. Prince Varian looked up at his father's disappointed face, at the rows of nobles who had already written him off, at the future that had been decided without him. He felt the familiar coldness settling over him, the same numbness that had nearly destroyed him. Then he saw Thomas in the servants' section. The human janitor caught his eye and did something completely inappropriate for the solemn occasion. He crossed his eyes, stuck out his tongue, and pretended to slip on an invisible banana peel. Prince Varian smiled. Then he laughed. And then he breathed fire like the palace had never seen, a column of golden flame that spiraled upward through all 7 tiers of the arena, bright enough to rival the 3 suns themselves. The court erupted in stunned applause. Emperor Thraxian stood, shock and pride warring on his ancient face. Prince Varian walked across the arena, not toward his father, but toward the servants' section. He bowed to Thomas Reed, the human janitor who had saved his life by teaching him something the Empire had forgotten: that strength without joy is just another form of weakness, and that sometimes the smallest person in the room is the mightiest teacher of all. "Thank you," the prince whispered. Tomas ruffled the scales on the young dragon's head. "Anytime, kid, anytime." From that day forward, the Empire of Drakenthar learned a new lesson from the humans they had dismissed: that laughter is not weakness, that joy is not frivolous, and that kindness is the strongest magic of all. Prince Varian would grow to become the greatest emperor in Drakenthar's history. No, not for his conquest or his fury, but for his wisdom and his unprecedented decree that all citizens, regardless of species, deserved the chance to laugh. And in a quiet corner of the palace, Thomas Reed continued to mop floors, tell jokes, and remind anyone who would listen that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply treating others with genuine kindness.